The scent of rosemary and orange peel hung low over the table, the kind of aromatic confidence that tries to convince you a meal is safe. Candle wax dripped down an old brass candelabrum, slow and deliberate, as if time itself were thickening. My mother's glazed ham flashed under the kitchen light like something polished for a showroom. We were 5 minutes into small talk when Aunt Delia slid a 9-page packet across the linen. Smooth linen, good linen, and said, with the voice she used for charity auctions, just a housekeeping thing before dessert. It was a family settlement statement, laser-printed and clipped. The dollar figure sat centered on the second page like a dare, $42,000 due in 72 hours. The words "your share" were in bold. When I looked up, my sister Sloane wouldn't meet my eyes. My stepfather, Joel, rested his fingers on the packet's edge as if he were blessing it. The room hummed with the refrigerator's distant motor, a single hard sound you hear when a silence is working. "You're a good one for numbers, Mara," my mother said, smoothing the napkin into a swan. You'll understand. I did understand. And I had not come alone. I am, by temperament and by trade, a woman who reads what numbers remember. When other people hear sums and feel fog, I see chronology, intention, alibis that drift. I manage operations for a design studio, and on the side, I am the person friends forward, "Can you just look at this?" Emails to at 2 in the morning. Numbers don't lie. People do math around their lies. When I was 12, my father, a quiet mechanic who kept his wrenches in a velvet-lined drawer, taught me to rebuild a carburetor by laying out the parts on white towels in order of disassembly, a ritual of grace I can still smell. Gasoline, metal, the mint gum he always had in his cheek. "If it works again, it tells us we didn't miss anything," he would say. He died when I was 23. At the memorial, Sloane took a microphone and spoke about his laugh. I stared at the black marker labels on his toolboxes and realized grief was just a crowded ledger where every story was trying to post itself to the same account. Our family stayed together on paper, birthdays, bills, a shared house key, but I started keeping a second set of books in my mind. One for what was said, and one for what happened. The lever, as the woman I brought would later call it, had been sliding into place for weeks. First came a pre-transition email from Aunt Delia about reallocating household expenses, since we're moving toward a single shared equity model, bolded like inspirational words in a slide deck. Then a text from Sloane, "We should talk about your place. Mom thinks it would be better if I were closer to her for the fall," said as if geography were a health plan. The lever didn't look like theft. It looked like logistics. On Thursday, I got a scanned notice of assignment of tenancy purporting to transfer my apartment to Sloane for family necessity, e-signed with a misshapen version of my signature that made my name look like it had been chewing something. On Friday, my building's app logged me out and would not recognize my phone. On Saturday, someone tried to reset my Rain City Bank password at 2:11 a.m. "We all contribute," Aunt Delia had said in the email. No heroes, no passengers. They tried to turn me into both, the hero who pays and the passenger who does not choose the journey. I printed their attachments on bright white paper and used a good black pen to circle the tells. The signature angle, the date format that Sloane never uses, the return address that was 1 digit wrong, which is the kind of intimacy error you make when you memorize from a necessary distance. I also pulled screenshots. Rain City's password reset attempt, the new access log on my building account showing a device name I didn't recognize, Sloane's iPhone, and a bank withdrawal slip from the House Reserves account that Aunt Delia and Joel administered. $21,000 cash, signed by Joel, with the memo line, "Tile." Our family does not tile things with cash. Layered under that, a board authorization for expenses that never appeared in the studio's ledger. "They're moving the bricks," I told the woman I had asked to meet me at the cafe across from my mother's house before dinner. She looked at the stack with a private patience I recognized from surgeons' biographies. Her name is Carmen Ito, CPA, CFE, a certified fraud examiner with square black glasses and a way of listening that made you aware of your own bones. The first time we spoke, 3 years ago, she untangled a vendor scam that would have quietly cost my studio $68,000. We had not spoken since. When I called the number on her old card, I half expected oblivion. She picked up on the third ring, and when I told her what was happening, she didn't ask for emotion. She asked for PDFs. I sent her a packet titled Dinner. She replied, "If you move 1 brick, let the wall fall." That was the line she brought to everything. It became that day a way to breathe. We met an hour before dinner, and she put a sealed, self-addressed envelope on the table. "Don't open this unless someone tears something," she said. I nodded. It did not occur to me yet how literal she was. At the table, I asked if we could read the housekeeping thing together. Joel was ready. He had the cadence of a man who has rehearsed his lines into the mirror. "As you know," he began. I did not. "We've subsidized your education, your first lease, and you've been living in the family building at below market. We totaled those benefits, netted by goodwill, and your contribution settles us to zero. 42,000. He said it as if he were Mercy. My mother took the role of reluctant enforcer. 72 hours, honey, so you don't get penalized by the contractors. Sloane said nothing about my apartment. She sipped water. The candelabrum guttered. I put my palm on the packet as if it were a small animal I intended to keep safe. Before I sign anything, I said, Carmen has a few questions. When the front door opened, my mother's eyebrows flicked. Confusion, offense, calculation, before she stood and rearranged her smile for a guest. Carmen greeted her in the warm, low voice she used for oblivious people who might soon recognize themselves. I'm here as a favor to Mara, she said, setting a slim black folder on the empty chair beside her. She did not sit until someone asked her to. She did not need to. We'll be efficient, Joel bristled. This is family, he said. So is arithmetic, Carmen said. She spoke like a metronome. She began with dates. The continued awkwardness of silence punctuated each one. This settlement was drafted yesterday, she said. But your contractor penalties, you'll forgive me, are an old line item from a campaign finance template. The penalties in those contracts are not for late checks. They're for filing delays. Sloppy reuse. She flipped pages with one finger, slow enough to let shame make its way around. The notice of assignment of tenancy is not valid. Buildings don't do assignments by family fiat, and the signature is not hers. She placed my forged signature next to my driver's license and let the absurdity have a moment. Further, this withdrawal from house reserves, $21,000 in cash. She looked at Joel and said nothing else, trusting silence to complete the sentence. Finally, there are 2 Rain City attempts to reset Mara's password at 2:11 a.m. and 2:13 a.m. This family does not tile with cash, she said. And in the second, it took for memory to catch up with her. I saw the gleam of someone who has sat at enough of these tables to know that every family is a repeating pattern with different wallpaper. Pull one thread, she said, nodding toward the packet. Let the fabric answer. Of course we'd pay you back, my mother said, pleading now with the idea of herself. This is just making things tidy. Then we'll make it tidy, Carmen said. She slid a 1-page document across to Joel, a simple attestation that no family member had forged, coerced or misrepresented signatures for property transfers or bank access, and that no assignment of tenancy would be attempted without the building's written consent. It's a formality, she said. Sign it and we'll proceed. Joel pushed it back as if it were contagious. We don't sign outside people's papers at our table. Carmen nodded. Then let the outside people come to your table. She looked at me. I've already filed a suspicious activity report with Rain City's fraud unit with the screenshots you sent. A temporary hold on transfers from house reserves is standard while they call you for confirmation. Mara, expect that call in the next hour. The hum in the room changed keys. A lower note. When Carmen asked for the notice of assignment of tenancy, Sloane took a breath in the way of a person asking their body to hold a new story. Mom needs me close, she said, the old correct tone. I'm closer when I stand still, I said, and slid the paper toward Carmen. The forged signature looked at me like it was waiting to be forgiven. This one's going to the building manager, Carmen said, and to the police if anyone tries to enter a unit that isn't theirs. Joel laughed without humor. You think you can call the cops on family? I think the law knows the difference between keys and kin, Carmen said, and wrote down the building manager's name, Mr. Patel, like a person already on a first-name basis with outcomes. Since we're cleaning up, Aunt Delia said, voice tight, why don't we get this over with? She reached for her handbag, produced a black fountain pen and a makeshift check, made out to family reserves from me for $42,000. She had written it to look inevitable. Write it, she said. You have 72 hours, but why wait? I looked at the pen. I looked at my mother. I thought of my father's white towels and the way clean surfaces require discipline to remain themselves. Of course, I said, and wrote the check with a smooth hand that knew how to leave a trail. When I signed, Carmen did not stop me. Joel's grin returned to his resting state. He folded the check as if he were pocketing proof. He did not keep it long. Carmen said, "You may want to confirm the routing number." He opened it again, defensive. "It's correct." "The account," Carmen said, "no longer exists." Joel's face jolted, a fish confronting glass. "You think you're clever," he said. "I think I'm prepared," I said. Earlier that afternoon, while Carmen sat across from me at the cafe and drew boxes on a napkin, I had moved the liquid part of my life into something I'd created for a future I had not expected to need this soon. Ellison Studio Trust, administered by Northlake Trust Company. The check I wrote used the old account that now lived with a zero like a mask that's been removed. It was a decoy and a record both. "You tore up nothing," Carmen said quietly when Aunt Delia, understanding just enough to be dangerous, ripped the check into confetti as if destruction were salvation. I reached into my bag and pulled out the sealed envelope Carmen had given me. Inside were the certified trust documents recorded 2 weeks ago without fanfare, because quiet is a tool when noise is an enemy. "Decoy asset," Carmen said almost to herself. "Vault in place?" She didn't smile. People like Carmen do not gloat. They annotate. Pull one thread, let the fabric answer. Numbers don't lie. People just do math around their lies. "You tore up nothing." The law knows the difference between keys and kin. I'm closer when I stand still. Quiet is a tool when noise is an enemy. Move one brick and let the wall fall. Fallout does not roar when people like us move. It clicks, it dings, it tallies. On the walk home from my mother's, my phone pulsed with 17 missed calls. 9 from my mother, 3 from Sloan, 4 from an unknown number I know now was Joel's work line, 1 from the building's main office. The text thread populated like popcorn. Sloan posted a long Facebook paragraph about loyalty and shared responsibilities, with a photo of us as children standing on a pier. I did not respond. Carmen sent an email with the subject, "Ari, dinner, documents," and a zip attachment named Receipts. It was not a plea. It was a docket. At 9:37 p.m., Rain City called to confirm the fraud report, and when I said yes, the representative's voice took on that careful timbre people use around car accidents. "We've placed a temporary hold on the House Reserves account while we verify signatories," she said. At 9:55 p.m., Mr. Patel, my building manager, called. "Ms. Ellison," he said, almost formal, "someone tried to present a notice of assignment for your unit earlier today." We declined. "Is everything okay?" Cemented in his tone was the promise of a gate on hinges. I didn't sleep. Quiet justice isn't quiet when you're alone in it for the first time. It's a fan that you can't unhear. The next morning, while I was making French press coffee, Sloan arrived at my apartment with luggage. She had our mother's old brass key in her palm like a talisman. When she inserted it into the lock, it turned uselessly. She pounded. I opened the door and stood with care in the space between us. "This is not your place," I said. She lifted her phone. "Mom said." "Mom is not the lease office," I said, and stepped aside enough to show the man inside, a stranger in gray sweatpants who paused mid-box, then stiffened at the sight of Sloan. "Can I help you?" he asked, polite and alert. "I'm your new neighbor," I said, calm. "She is leaving." Sloan threw her bag down, letting the thud do some talking for her. "You can't call the cops on me," she said, like a spell accidentally said out loud. I lifted my phone, already recording. "No," I said, "but I can ask you to leave. And if you refuse, Mr. Patel can call for trespass." The elevator dinged and Mr. Patel materialized. With the particular speed of building managers who have been waiting a long time to be the version of themselves, they are in the emergency plan. The conversation that followed was short and civil. When Officer Delgado from Seattle PD arrived, she asked for names and had the reflective calm of someone whose body is a baton. "Bodycam on," she said, and the whole hallway felt like it had accepted its rank. Sloane's voice tried its last magic on the camera. It did not move. "You are being asked to leave this unit," Officer Delgado said, gentle and relentless. "Failure to do so will result in a trespass notice and you will be removed." Sloane picked up her bag. Her face folded into the shape of a person who wants to cry, but doesn't know the honest reason yet. At noon, Carmen and I met Joel and Aunt Delia at a cafe they chose. All black tiling and lime chairs. A place where people take pictures of their coffees like documentation. Carmen placed a small digital recorder on the table, pressed a button, and asked, "Do I have your consent to record this conversation for accuracy?" Joel looked as if the word accuracy had personally affronted him. Then he nodded, because saying no to honesty in public requires a special mask. "This is on record," Carmen said. "We'll be brief." She slid the forged notice of assignment across to Joel. "Who drafted this?" she asked. Joel's shoulders did a vague shrug, a shrug that wanted to blur. "We all did," he said, a collectivism of convenience. "I'll be specific," Carmen said. "Whose idea was it to present a $42,000 invoice at dinner with a 72-hour deadline?" "Don't use that word," Aunt Delia said, not ready to be inside nouns. "The word is invoice," Carmen said. "This is on record." She let the recorder sit like a witness. Joel made the mistake people make when silence feels like a cliff. He filled it. "We just thought she'd do the right thing," he said, and there it was. The confession that hides in moral phrasing. You can only call something the right thing when you know it can't survive a precise description. Carmen didn't lean in. She wrote down his words. "Here's what will happen," she said. "Rain City's hold will generate verification calls. If you are on this account improperly, they will remove you. If you have taken cash without proper authorization, they will note it. The building will file the forged assignment in their incident log and flag your names. If you attempt entry again, they will call SPD. If you post libel, Mara will respond with a factual thread and then go quiet. And then," she said, as if the sentence had been waiting its turn all morning, "we will leave the rest to the record. In court dramas, the reckoning is a gaveling. In life, it is emails that say per our phone conversation and letters on creamy paper with seals." The week settled into a ledger of validations. Rain City sent a letter. A temporary freeze is in place on the House Reserves account pending documentation review. The building's legal counsel emailed, "We do not accept unilateral assignments. Any attempt to enter Unit 4C without authorization will result in a trespass notice." Officer Delgado's bodycam footage was logged and referenced in Mr. Patel's incident file. Carmen drafted a restitution memo, not a demand, a memo, listing the $21,000 cash withdrawal and a reconciled balance of items that should never have been categorized as house expenses. A Peloton, a Napa weekend, a leadership retreat that was a hotel suite with a minibar hunger. Joel called my mother and told her I was destroying the family. My mother sent me a text with 6 words that were honest in their pain. "I don't know what to do." I replied with 14 words that were honest in mine. "Stand back. It's a wall falling. I love you. Stand back, because quiet justice is also boundaries." I scheduled one more meeting, this one in a small room at Northlake Trust Company, with a rubber plant that I suspect had heard more confessions than most priests. The trust officer, a woman named Priya with a ring that looked like a clear slice of water, explained to my mother the difference between a decoy and a vault, gently, as if she were teaching a child what a storm cloud means. "The Ellison Studio Trust holds Mara's liquid assets," she said. "This is not a hiding place. It's an instrument for clarity." She showed my mother the recording stamp dates 2 weeks pre-dinner. My mother put her finger pads on the paper like checking if a sleeping baby was breathing. "I didn't know," she said, and there was less performance in it than I'd expected. "You could have asked," I said. "You didn't ask. You assigned." She nodded, the small nod of someone who has heard a true word find its target. The social media smear plus receipts thread module, the thing pop culture likes to blowtorch, was, in my life, small and precise. When Sloan posted the second tirade, I responded once with a chronological thread. Timeline: 1. Saturday 2:11 a.m. Rain City password attempts, screenshots. 2. Notice of assignment with forged signature, PDF circled. 3. $21,000 cash withdrawal from House Reserves, scan. 4. Dinner invoice for $42,000 with 72-hour deadline, photo. 5. Bodycam incident number for apartment hallway. SPD case, Eachinger, written. I will not discuss further. Then I turned off comments and put my phone face down. The receipt montage I posted was not a victory dance. It was a still life of decisions. The institution that surprised me most was the one I had underestimated, the studio's own board, who convened on Zoom the following Tuesday. A grid of faces, the little squares that make you feel like a stamp album of responsibilities, and voted to formalize a boundary policy that would have sounded mad 2 weeks earlier. No commingling of personal family obligations with company funds or employee resources. Immediate review triggers upon attempt. They kept it quick. For your protection, the chair said, and for ours. It felt like a small wire pulled taut across a canyon. Invisible, essential, ready. I'll remember the confrontation scene we had in my mother's kitchen more for the sounds than the words. The coffee maker's gurgle. The little note the fridge makes when open too long. I laid the rubber-stamped copies of the trust documents on the counter. Carmen stood beside me and, with my mother's consent, recorded. On record, she said, and even the word made the room straighten its collar. Joel came in blistered with phrases. You can't cut us out, he said. I'm not cutting, I said. I'm counting. He lifted the decoy check, or what he thought was the check, a photo Carmen had printed for demonstration. He ripped it in half and looked wronged, hungry for my guilt. You tore up nothing, I said again, not unkindly this time. Sloan reached for the old brass key on the hook by the door and found it missing. I had placed it that morning in a shadow box, along with the notice of assignment and a small unlined index card where I had written, in my father's phrasing, if it works again, it tells us we didn't miss anything. Carmen watched me watching my own hands. Pull one thread, she said softly now. Let the fabric answer. The reckoning touched wood that day. Not a gavel, but a signature. Joel signed Carmen's attestation with a pen he didn't like, hand tight, like anger wants to be a font. Aunt Delia refused. She left, and that decision became its own kind of document. Rain City released their letter the next morning. Account restrictions remain pending restitution plan. Mr. Patel delivered a formal trespass warning to Sloan with Officer Delgado present. The building's council sent copies to all parties. No dramatic arrests. No slammed doors. Just the accrued weight of a week's ledger tilting what had once felt fixed. After, the days reopened. Quiet justice has a way of making ordinary light look like new paint. I took a walk where the city smells like espresso and alder, and I thought about the way memory rearranges itself around a boundary. My mother started seeing a counselor at the community center. She called it my arithmetic coach, which is as close to a confession as she could manage. Sloan wrote a short apology I believed only in the parts where her sentences were shortest. I hate that hallway video, she said. Me too, I said, which was true in exactly the way it needed to be. Joel stayed a man in rooms he controlled. Most rooms are not that kind of room. In the studio, we hung the shadow box on the wall by the server, the brass key, the assignment paper, the index card with my father's line, and no one asked why it was there. People knew. A deed is a story. A trust certificate is a story. A screenshot is a story. Evidence in my life now has character. It enters a scene with a posture. It speaks quietly and institutions nod. I still set the table with linen when I want dinner to matter. I still like rosemary. The candelabrum is back to being a candelabrum. That night, weeks after the dinner where the numbers tried to recruit me, I sat alone with a bowl of oranges and listened to the house make its small clicks. I opened my father's old velvet-lined drawer and touched a wrench that was too heavy for the job, just to remind myself I could lift it if I had to. I took the shadow box down, cleaned the glass with a cloth that doesn't streak, and put it back up a little higher. Then I turned off the kitchen light and let the room cool. Compliance, like justice, is just a set of words that hold when you lean on them. Here are mine. I am Mara Ellison. At family dinner, they handed me a bill for $42,000 and a deadline of 72 hours. They tried to assign my sister to my apartment, and the hallway answered them with a bodycam. I brought an auditor instead of a temper. We moved one brick and let the wall fall. The record kept what we couldn't. And on a quiet night, long after, I closed the drawer the way my father taught me. Firmly, once, no slam, until the latch found itself.